Welcome to the Be Your Soul podcast. I'm your host, Sky Bradshaw, and today we're exploring the many ways we learn to support ourselves through life's ins and outs and ups and downs. In this episode, More Than One Way Home, Building a Well-Rounded Toolbox for Life, we'll talk with Terah Kelleher about cultivating a diverse and adaptable collection of tools for mind, body, and spirit. Together, we'll explore how we can better recognize the kind of support we need in different moments and discover the many ways we can come home to our most authentic selves. But before we dive into the Unclouded Heart segment for spiritual messages of wisdom, let's invite ourselves to become present in this moment within our body, mind, and energy. Take a moment to invite yourself to take some deep and cleansing breaths. In through your nose and out through your mouth. And in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as we breathe in through our nose and out through our mouth, we invite our mind, body, and energy to relax, 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 relax. Relax, 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 relax. And as we move into this space of complete relaxation, we open up our energies to the ancestors, loved ones, and friends to come together today to heal and guide us and lift us to the highest version of ourselves in the light of the universe. So we may hear what we need to hear, know what we need to know, connect how we need to connect, and be what we need to be for our highest and best good, and the highest and best good of all involved, as we open up space to give and receive. More than one way home. There's an old saying, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And sometimes, without even realizing it, we approach our healing and growth in much the same way. We recycle the same lessons, replay the same stories, reconnect with the same challenges and patterns over and over again. Not because we're unwilling to grow, but because when something hurts or life becomes uncertain, we often reach for the tools we already know. The familiar response, the familiar practice, the familiar way of making sense of what is happening. And there is some wisdom in that. I'm a great believer in having a strong foundation. We all need those core practices that bring us back to ourselves, the things that steady us when life feels uncertain, the things we can return to again and again and trust them to help us find our footing. Return to the breath, return to the prayer, return to meditation, movement, journaling, nature, community, creativity, or whatever practices form the ground beneath your feet. Know what centers you. Know what reconnects you. Know what helps you remember who you are. Because a strong foundation does matter. But a foundation is meant to support what we continue to build. And this is where we can sometimes become stuck. We find something that works, perhaps even something that changed our lives. And without realizing it, we begin to believe that because it was the answer then, it must always be the answer now. So we keep reaching for that same tool. We try harder. We repeat the practice. We return to the same perspective. And when nothing changes, we may decide that we're failing or that the work simply is not working anymore. But you cannot have change without change. And sometimes that includes changing the tools we use to heal and grow. This does not mean abandoning the practices that brought us here or constantly chasing the next new thing. It means allowing our foundation to become a place we build from rather than a place we become afraid to leave. From there, we're invited to become curious, to become inquisitive, to recognize the possibilities in how we care for ourselves and meet the experiences of our lives. Sometimes that means discovering an entirely new tool. Sometimes it means sharpening an existing one so we can use it better or differently. Sometimes it means adjusting a tool we already have and learning a new way to connect with it. And sometimes we realize we have been using a tool incorrectly all along and are invited to deepen our understanding of how to work with it. Think of cutting a loaf of bread. You can use a regular knife, and yes, the bread will cut, but use a serrated knife, and suddenly the experience changes. The slice can become thinner. The texture remains intact. Even the flavor may seem to come forward a little differently. The bread did not change. What changed was the way we approached it. And because the approach changed, so did the experience. Perhaps this is something we could consider in our own lives. What might become possible if we approached an old challenge from a different angle? What if we softened where we usually push, moved where we usually become still, reached out where we usually pull away, listened where we usually explain, or rested where we usually persist? What if, instead of immediately asking, how do I make this work, we became curious enough to ask, what else might be possible here? Because curiosity itself can become a healing tool. Curiosity creates movement where certainty can sometimes get us stuck, helping us see old stories from new perspectives and recognize choices we may not have known were available. Trying something differently does not mean what we did before was wrong. It may simply mean we are growing. And that is the beauty of a well-rounded toolbox, not collecting endless practices, but creating enough possibility within our lives that we are not forced to meet every experience in the same way. There's more than one way to heal, more than one way to grow, more than one way to find balance, and more than one way home. The tools that brought you this far deserve to be honored, and the foundation they helped to build deserves to remain strong. But honoring what has supported us does not require us to believe it is the only thing that ever will. So keep your foundation. And from that steady place, give yourself permission to wonder what else is possible. Stay curious enough to try a new way, open enough to see from a different angle, humble enough to refine what you thought you already knew, and connected enough to yourself to recognize what you needed yesterday may not be what you need today. Perhaps that is part of the wisdom of finding our way home, trusting that the road that carried us here was meaningful while remaining open to paths ahead we have not yet imagined.
We're excited to share that Be Your Soul host Sky Bradshaw has launched a new look and a new online home, bringing her work together in one place. From the Be Your Soul podcast and notes from Sky on Substack to online classes, spiritual services, creative work, upcoming events, and more, you can now explore the many ways to learn, connect, and work with Sky through one central space. Whether you're looking for a new episode, a little inspiration, a class to support your growth, or a deeper way to connect with your own path, we invite you to come explore what's available and see what speaks to you. Visit www.skybradshaw.com to discover the new site and find your way to whatever feels like the right next step.
Today's guest is Terah Kelleher. Terah is a massage and bodywork therapist and body awareness coach who combines her training in yoga, Pilates, and somatic experiencing with higher education in creative writing, health science, and library and information science. She owns Holistic Wellness and Expression in Greensboro, North Carolina, where she offers massage therapy, somatic experiencing, body awareness classes, and personal sessions. Drawing from this wide range of practices and perspectives, Terah's work reflects the heart of today's conversation, that there may not be one right tool for every person or every moment. So, welcome. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you and to tune into that concept of the many roads of coming home to ourselves. I'm really grateful for you to be here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's a lot of different ways that we can utilize tools and practices and ways of connecting with the different work, so to say, that we, get into. But a lot of times we create repetition, or we are kind of taught that if it worked, if it's not broke, don't fix it, sort of, mentality that caps our curiosity and inquisitiveness and kind of gives us that play the record over and over belief system that really doesn't invite in all the possibilities. I think sometimes our limiting beliefs can be really sneaky and cunning, because if we believe that that worked every time and in the best intention, we are using it because it worked every time, then it takes some possibilities out of the picture. So, in that, because you have such a broad spectrum of things that you do and all of them weave together so beautifully, how's your own philosophy been when it comes to embracing that expansiveness instead of tuning into like that one way mentality?
Yeah, I think my philosophy, it came from so many different things, but I did notice my parents modeled the idea of self-care and taking care of yourself in various ways. Like I saw my mom journaling, art. My dad was movement. I really can say that my body awareness classes, I'm like, I'll share things with my dad. I'm like, oh, you taught me that. Or if I do writing, oh, my mom modeled reflecting with writing. And so there's that. And then that spirituality was in your life, food was medicine, movement was medicine. So I think I always saw it as a not one size like fits all.
Mm-hmm.
And that, yeah, pretty much. And I will tell you, massage school in 2002 really set the stage for that, because my body has been my best teacher. Because we have, like, first of all, you have pain, right? And then you can say, why is my body doing this? But it would be like, okay, even before I knew that it was speaking or learning more about the somatic experiencing approach, I was like, oh, it's telling me something. So I knew that I would maybe have to look at it different ways. Like, first of all, change the way I'm doing something, like body mechanics wise, if I had neck and shoulder pain, because that's usually comes first with massage. And the body mechanics approach to things is then to fix it in the room. Then if that doesn't work, you're like, hold on, am I using my body correctly? Do I need to have like core work? Do I need flexibility? And energetic wise, am I not, setting energetic boundaries? And so that's how the 5 elements of body awareness sort of came. It was all the tools that I've used across the years to stay healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Because in massage therapy, a lot of times our shelf life, you'd say, is 5 to 8 years, but I've lasted almost, basically 24 years. So you had to pivot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my massage teachers and mentors along the way have always been very inquisitive about talking to people as soon as I got into a field, is to ask how they did things. And they said, oh, you might have to add modalities to massage because the hands can only take so much.
Mm-hmm.
You might need to teach. You might need to do something else to vary. But yeah.
And I feel like part of that is recognizing in it, not only not being a one size fit all, but it really is recognizing you could have the same ankle pain 20 times and it come from 20 different reasons and 20 different spaces and 20 different focuses. And one time it could be, when we look at the mind, body, and energy focus, one time it could really be, spearheaded in physical, and the next time spearheaded in energetic, and the next time spearheaded in emotional. And so if we just do the same thing every time, that to me, it creates the pattern of inviting, not only the remedy in a pattern, but the malady in a pattern. And so when we can have that pivoting focus and say, okay, what does it need this time? Like, I can have my base toolbox that I know I'm going to use, at the core, at the foundation, but what is the salt in the soup this time that's going to make it really come forward in different ways?
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, like, I always use the example, like, if a client comes in and has low back pain, you know, they might say, oh, I was in the yard all day long. But, you know, I might get in there and the muscles are fine, but you turn over and they have digestive issues. So of course that area is going to be affected. So we have to look at visceral, is everything flowing right? And then I even ask, sometimes they'll be like, man, I just lost somebody, or I'm moving.
Mm-hmm.
And there is that whole energetics of the earth is shifting underneath their feet. Some people get into that. Some people will be like, yeah, Tara, that's that. But I might encourage them. I can never prescribe or diagnose anything, but it's like, what, do you notice where it gets you feel your feet now? Could you root yourself in time and space and see if that helps? There's so many different things.
Absolutely. And usually it's a combination of practices. So we use our experience, we use things that like our foundation, we look at, like, how did that work for you? We outsource into community bases. And, one of the things that I always try and remind people is, when we look at things with fresh eyes, when we see things like with a beginner's mind, even if it is, I've seen back pain 1,000 times, like, us as practitioners, we get to see the whole being that's in front of us, like very present moment, and it shifts our perspective and we can open up to other possibilities. I think it's why both you and I, do have a wide range of tools that we use at our access points, because what one person is going to latch onto and heal with, another person it's not going to affect them in the same way. So I feel like that's an important thing to recognize, like foundation and there's 1,000 ways home, is really, really important. The challenge comes in sometimes is, it's hard to convince people when it works that there might be another way. And so how do you approach that with your clients or with yourself, when you're, so to say, like, in something that's not broke, how do you see it, instead of seeing it as fixing it? How do you see it as, oh, I would like the next level or the different angle or another tool in my toolbox? How do you approach that in your world?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially with chronic pain, will say, well, this is better. And this, yeah, like you just said, it works. So I'll just keep doing it this way. So I can see this when someone likes, I don't do this much anymore, but that no pain, no gain kind of idea with massage, even though I do deep therapeutic work, but it's more in a mindful way. So I think a lot of times if I'm like, well, you've come to me for 15 years for this shoulder concern. I'm adding new tools to my toolbox. I mean, I've done yoga since I was a teenager, but like actually got certified, and then added Pilates for core health. Like, the whole body awareness thing is to teach people kind of that their quality of living could be uplifted, and they don't have to stay like, well, I do this and this is maybe just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that whole idea of my clients, kind of, that we've been on this journey, but then also it's reflected what I needed. There has been that, me telling my clients, come here, let me show you this. Maybe we can try this.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets a little better. And even with, so somatic experiencing is what I'm doing now. And it's kind of like, if you want to think of the psychosomatic things. I'm not a psychologist, and I have to stay within the scope of a body worker lens of it. But how, if someone, say, has that neck and shoulder pain and it's still there, if we go to this body oriented therapy that's could help with chronic pain, chronic stress, and trauma,
Mm-hmm.
using it to maybe see if that charge is still in their system.
Mm-hmm.
And so this one's an interesting and hard sell, because it's so hard to do an elevator pitch for somatic experiencing. It's You don't know what's going to happen in a session. With my neck concerns, like I had to work through a wreck that I had when I was in my 20s, and my practitioner took me through with in a safe container of the protocols that we learn in somatic experiencing to take someone through an accident or through so I think for me it is that whole, just try it, have a curiosity. But I'm sure you meet people that are very very set in their ways,
Mm-hmm.
and they maybe, this is fine for me, and that's, everybody has their life story and what they're going to choose. But then some slowly say, hold on, well, maybe I could.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I
Yeah.
could try something new.
I,
Yeah.
I I definitely feel like one of the things that like I've learned, and part of, even in a tarot reading, like you will find people the first or second time who come in and they're really trying to direct, like, this was my goal. This was the thing. They have the hammer and they're just pounding the nail, and they're like, this is just what I want out of this. And, and spirit, the universe, giant shape of marshmallow man in the sky, whatever we're connected to,
Yeah.
doesn't work like that. That's not how that, and so to me, the first step always is like creating a sense of trust. So let them drive a little bit and make, some communicative connections on how they're doing it. But then when you can build into saying, like, well, let's loosen up, let's like open up the possibilities here and see what other angles we can come at. And, maybe there's something, and I always say it's, humans are focused on the leaves. Sometimes we get focused on the trunk, but very rarely are we focused on the roots. And so, like, if we build enough trust to say, well, let's look at a different aspect or a different angle and see how that comes in, then it makes it easier for people to hear those things, like you're saying, that says, like, oh, well, I've been doing this, I kind of like it, you want to give it a try. Then they feel open and connective enough to look from a different angle. But most of the time, that control, the hammering the nail, isn't because they really want to control the situation. It's because we're in a time frame, especially right now, like, we don't know what we don't know. And so it's bringing that into a space of saying, like, well, how do we look for what we might not know? Like, how do we look with curiosity and inquisitiveness in spaces that we may not be even thinking to look? And when we have a trusted, guided expert to say, like, let's loosen up, let's try this, then it invites people in that space.
And I think especially we have our stories that we hold and could tell over and over, like it's, a newscast. And the body is now, I noticed, having more of a voice of us learning to listen. And so if you have a pattern, there is a way that us on the outside as practitioners, we can never know what that person, like, we can't say, I know I can heal you, right? I can fix you. It's like, no, no, no. But, like, for example, if I'm in a somatic experiencing session with somebody and they're telling their story that they've told a million times to somebody, that they may be like, their shoulders right up and their jaw clenches, and they do something with their body that is a pattern that, and again, I'm going back to the shoulders, but if they
Mhm.
have tension and they don't even realize, I'll be like, we're taught to not call that out all the time, because then they just feel like they're being watched.
Yeah.
But they go, oh, I didn't even notice I do that. And I didn't notice I held my breath when I'm in this situation. Or so they're able to become more aware where they might have been on this path where you're just the outside observer and that unconditional, hopefully safe, they feel it's a safe space where you can help guide them and say, they'll be like, oh, okay, that's something that maybe I could change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's important. I remember I try and have a good connection in my spiritual spaces. I've done a lot of emotional work in my, emotional areas, and that physical aspect was one of the areas that I didn't know what I didn't know, like in those spaces. And I was getting a facial from a very trusted person who I love dearly. And, like definitely there's no reason for me to be tense or stressed or anything. And I was getting a very beautiful face massage, and I felt like it was just like the greatest ever. And I realized my butt cheeks were clenched so tight in that moment. And I was like, what is happening, Sky? Like, why? Like, this is I mentally felt relaxed. I energetically felt relaxed, but physically I was not relaxed. And it was a big aha moment for me where I was like, oh my gosh, like it wasn't even in my awareness until that point that was such a reaction for who knows what reason. And so then had me start looking at the physical body in different ways and recognizing the different angles I needed to approach, because, if I knew that the emotional aspect, that, psychological aspect was the reason for that, I thought I'd done all that work. I thought I had cleared that out, like I was A plus on the work I did in that area. And my butt was like, oh no, not A plus.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me tell you, this is a journey, not a, it's literally, that's why I love being in the body, just anatomy and physiology, the physical part, but then the spiritual, everything. There's so many things that collide. Like, we have to know that we're such layered beings that, yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And if you can notice where you're tense and where that chronic bracing just will lead to pain. And the same thing if you're have weakness, if we think of ourselves physically, we are, I hate to say machine, but if like every muscle has a job and we just need that efficiency, but we also have so many other parts that have to come in.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So there's not just one medicine. There's never going to be one medicine for it in any way, shape, or form.
And that's why I love to tell people, I don't know if you remember, with the Natural Triad was a magazine that before, the internet. But I think when people are looking for the care they need and the practitioner, the mentor, whatever, I would always tell them to kind of thumb through that if they were looking, if they needed a massage therapist, if they needed, psychotherapist, energy therapist, the one thing would probably come to the surface when they needed that. And even when you're on your knees, I think, and you're like, oh gosh, I just need help with this. You might run into a friend that's like, I just went to a, massage therapist yesterday and she was so good. Or have you heard of this? This particular modality. But I love the breadcrumbs that we can get and the little nudges of things. Cause every day I'll be in some trainings or looking and I'm like, I didn't even know that existed. And I have to say, no, you're finishing one certification. You cannot do anything else, but I may try it. But yeah, I definitely think it's a wonderland out there of things that you can do.
Yeah. And it just takes that curiosity and inquisitiveness for sure. So is there anything else you feel like needs to be said about coming home to yourself and like the many roads of being able to do so? Any nuggets you feel compelled to share?
Yeah. And I think one of the questions I did like was like when people are looking and, there's so much information out there and it's overwhelming, it's disorienting. So I think it's cool for people to really understand what overwhelm feels like in their body. So I think if as soon as you know, like we have that centeredness and that, man, I feel like I love when I go on a walk or have my tea in the morning. Then I start to say, oh, I'll add this supplement and then I'll do this thing and then I'm going to do this thing. And all of a sudden my body feels like, for me, it's like that kind of uncomfortableness in my belly. I feel like I've been kicked up into the wind versus when I make a settled and somatic experience. I call it resource decision where I'm like, no, I really want to do this. Like this makes sense. So I do think if people can really sense where when they've added too much to their toolbox, like at one time, like let me
Right.
try this thing first and then integrate it in. Do I like it? Does it work? Give it time and then add another thing. Because I think our systems really need to learn what, even though the world is very stressful, that relaxed state as
Hmm.
relaxed as we can be and aware.
Yeah, I agree. And part of that to me is, part of that learned, what the internet tells us or whatever, what the memes are always talking about is that concept of like the work is hard, the work is always uncomfortable, the work is always just out of your reach. When you just get this right, then that thing will
Yeah.
happen. And the truth in being curious and inquisitive and open, and what you were just describing is integration, the integration of it is that if we can put the work into just is, like, my papa would say, if you stop asking questions, you're in the ground. And so, like, recognizing, like, it's part of the human experience is the quest for growth. And it's our choice on whether it's change or whether it's growth. And the difference is that curiosity and inquisitiveness, like, how do I go through this work and come out a better version of myself in whatever way?
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen through gobbling things up or,
Yeah.
constant regurgitation or the work should be nutrients for our soul path and pattern. And how are those nutrients really satiating you? How are they giving you what you need? And that isn't a one and done process. It took us however long we are old to get to this point. So it's not going to be a fix
Ah,
of one taste of medicine. And so I think that that is a really important discernment to recognize, like, integrate it, invite in what you need,
yeah.
and know there's more than one medicine.
And enjoy. I mean, consumerism and marketing really wants us to always feel like we need something. So I think there's really celebrating and savoring when we've made a growth, like made
Mm-hmm.
a big, even a small change, and like, oh, I feel better. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
let me really integrate this in. So I do think celebrating the small shifts
Yeah.
and the growth that because I know people can look back and say, man, it's been 2 years and I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would definitely agree with that.
Absolutely. So I ask every guest three questions. And the first one is, what do you think it means to be your soul?
Hmm. I think it's when I let the ego go and all the things of this world, like, and just that where I can really sense that inner teacher and I'm connected to nature is my nature and my higher power and my ancestors and just really feel that solidity.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely that where it's just that inner light in there.
Yeah.
Everything else is like, you know, brushed away or as much as it can be, right?
Hmm.
In this
Yeah,
human experience.
exactly. What
Yeah.
is one practice that you do every day to help fuel your energy, or often? Every day gets me in
Yeah.
trouble with people.
I know because I love walking in nature, but there's something I do every day is like I sit and even if I have 10 minutes, I drink my Earl Grey tea with rose petals and oat milk, and I sit there and I connect with my ancestors and higher power, and I orient. I really
Mm,
look around before I try to touch my phone and have noise. And it just really sets the precedent for my day.
Mhm.
And then I try to have that warm beverage at nighttime and kind of reflect on the day as well.
I like the word orient. I think I'm going to meditate around that for a little bit. Orienting
Yeah. And
is powerful.
it's just, you know, all the words savor and orient came from somatic experiencing. Like I have to give them Peter Levine the claim on that one, but it is like the orienting and the proprioception of your space. It really settles your nervous system.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So, speaking of settled nervous system, how do you know when you're centered and balanced?
Well, it's funny you're asking a somatic practitioner this. I could give you a list of the physical, but for me, it's that really feeling what's holding me, like my seat in this case. My feet are on the ground, like I actually feel them, feeling that midline, and that my breath and my shoulders are relaxed. But also that if you're thinking of more like emotional and spiritual, that is also just that connection to all my loved ones, but even that humankind in general,
Mhm.
if you can go that far sometimes, like just that interconnectedness of us all. But in general, I just try to feel that really kinesthetic, like, oh, you know, I'm
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
So please shout out your website so people can find you. And then if there's any upcoming courses or classes or things that you have going on in the fall and winter, then please let us know so listeners can find you.
Okay. I'm at terahhwe.com, www.terahhwe.com. And I'll be teaching small classes at my office, small somatic based, kind of somatic experiencing focused in my office. And then I also teach at 4 farms once a month, and I do mini retreats with one collaboration. So I will list those on my website and on my social media. So more to come with that. And then somatic experiencing sessions and the body work I offer at my office. And yeah, definitely can talk to each person and see if I'm a good fit, or I can always refer people to practitioners that I'm like, well, this is their bag, you know, this is what they do.
Yeah.
I love to network people and get them. Also, the librarian in me likes to get people to the right places.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you so much for being here. I really
Thank
appreciated the
you.
conversation. It's really great to have had you on the show. And thank you, dear listeners, for being here, for listening with openness, and for sharing this time with us. We know you have many places you can spend your time, and we're truly grateful you chose to spend this moment with Be Your Soul. And a heartfelt thank you to Terah for sharing your wisdom, experience, and expansive approach to whole person well-being. Today's conversation reminds us that growth is not always about finding the one right practice or path, but about staying curious, building a well-rounded toolbox, and learning to recognize what kind of support we need in different moments. May we honor the tools that have carried us this far while remaining open to new ways of learning, healing, and growing. Because there's more than one way to support ourselves, more than one way to meet life, and more than one way home.
What if caring for your energy became as natural as brushing your teeth, washing your hands, or taking a shower? Sky Bradshaw's live energy hygiene course is designed to help you recognize, understand, and support your energy in everyday life. Together, we'll explore what affects your energy, how to recognize when you feel depleted or out of balance, and practical tools to help you return to a greater sense of connection and support. This is not about adding another complicated spiritual routine to your day. It's about building awareness and creating a practical, sustainable, energetic toolbox you can use in real life. The course will be offered live on Zoom and in office, with space to learn, practice, ask questions, and connect in community. Can't attend live, or did you discover the course after the live dates? The recordings and coursework will also be available through the online classroom. Visit skybradshaw.com to learn more, explore upcoming classes, and discover new ways to connect, learn, and grow.
Today, I want to share a practice I found helpful in my work, and maybe you will too. I call it fresh eyes. It is so easy to stop truly seeing the things that have become familiar to us. We look at the same painting every day. We pass the same photograph in the hallway. We sit in front of the same altar, hold the same sacred object, or return to the same meaningful place. And over time, we may begin to see our memory of it more than what is actually in front of us. This practice is an invitation to interrupt that familiarity for just a moment and discover what we might notice when we allow ourselves to look at it with fresh eyes. So, for this practice, grab your trusty journal and choose something familiar that evokes some kind of feeling or meaning inside of you, or at least did at some point. It might be a painting you love, a photograph, something on your altar, a piece of jewelry, a plant, a spiritual object, or even something simple in your home that you've looked at 1,000 times. Choose something you know well enough that you already have a relationship with it. The first thing I want you to do is look at it as you normally would. Take a quick glance without studying it or trying to notice anything new, and then write down what you see. Describe it simply from what you already know. What is it? What stands out immediately? What does it mean to you? What feelings or associations come forward without having to think too much about them? Don't spend a lot of time here. The idea is simply to capture the way you already see and understand what is in front of you. When you're finished, set your journal down and close your eyes. Take a few slow breaths and create a little blank space inside yourself. You do not have to erase what you know or pretend that you've forgotten. Simply give yourself permission for a few moments to loosen your grip on the story you already carry in connection with this object. And quietly, either in your mind or out loud, say, "May I see this with fresh eyes. May I hear this with new ears. May I feel this with a clear heart. And may I know this with my true soul." Now take another breath. Let go of needing to know what it is. Let go of needing to know what it means. Open yourself to the possibility that there may still be something here you have not noticed. And when you're ready, open your eyes and look again. But this time, imagine you're seeing it for the very first time. Become curious, become inquisitive. Let yourself be eager to know, feel, and understand what it is in front of you without immediately reaching for what you already know about it. Notice the colors, notice the shapes, the shadows, the texture, the smallest details. Notice where your eyes are drawn and where they want to move away. Notice what feels beautiful, strange, comforting, unfamiliar, or newly alive. Tune into the energy of it in this moment. If the object had no name, how would you describe it? If you did not already know its story, what might you wonder about it? If you had never seen it before, what questions would you ask? Stay there for a few moments. Do not rush to interpret. Just notice. Then pick up your journal and describe it again. Write what you see now. Write what you feel now. Write what you notice now that you did not notice before. Pay attention to whether the language changes, whether the emotion changes, whether a new question appears, or whether something that once felt ordinary suddenly becomes interesting again. And then, when you've finished, read both descriptions. not to decide which one is right, but to become curious about the difference between them. What changed when you changed the way you looked? What became visible when you loosened your certainty? What did you discover when you allowed something familiar to become new again? This practice draws on the idea of beginner's mind, the willingness to meet an experience with openness and curiosity rather than assuming we already know everything there is to know about it. And I love this practice because the thing in front of us has not changed at all. The painting is the same. The altar is the same. The object is the same. But we are no longer looking through the same keyhole. And perhaps after trying this with something simple, you might begin to wonder where else in your life this kind of curiosity could create possibility. What relationship have you decided you fully understand? What part of yourself have you stopped exploring? What old story, spiritual practice, challenge, or dream might look different if you were willing to meet it again with a beginner's mind? So this week, I invite you to notice where familiarity may have quietly become certainty, and where certainty may be keeping you from seeing what else is there. May you be well. May you feel whole. May you be blessed. And may you find peace. And may you always be your soul.
Sometimes we all need a little extra support. Sky Bradshaw offers one-on-one sessions designed to meet you where you are and help you connect with greater clarity, balance, and insight. From intuitive tarot and Reiki to Jin Shin Jitsu, energy healing, and integrated sessions, there are a variety of ways to explore the support that feels right for you. Sessions are available in office, virtually, by phone, and through select email offerings. Visit skybradshaw.com to explore one-on-one sessions and discover what speaks to you.